Hey everybody, this is Bo back in the Sports Lounge. We're going to go all the way to the west side of the state. That's right, the west side of Michigan. And we're going to find out what a boxing promoter has done out there. He's none other than Denny Baxter. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Bo. How about yourself?
Well, I'm a big lover of boxing, and when I started covering mixed martial arts and getting a lot of these fighters on, and a lot of them had the similar idols as I had, Hagler, Hearns, Thomas, the list goes on. Boxing sort of fell off a little bit for us, but it looks like it's making a resurgence, just like Al Mitchell up in northern Michigan had said, and it's starting off in Kalamazoo, and you are the promoter out there.
Well, I'm another one of those ancient fans, if you will, that I've always loved the sport. I grew up with Muhammad Ali, and I followed closely the Hearns, Hagler, Duran trilogies, if you will, and I feel very fortunate to be a part of trying to get it going once again. West Michigan's got a huge history in terms of providing talent to the boxing industry, and I think it's time that we bring some local shows around once again to foster that next generation.
How did you come about putting this together right outside the baseball stadium, Fifth Third?
Well, actually, we had another event earlier this year, back in February. It was called the Winter Beer Fest, where a number of Michigan microbrews all came together and held an event to come and sample their different new creations, if you will. We actually built a bonfire, believe it or not, on our parking lot, fenced it in in the middle of February, we're all sitting outside drinking beer, and it was an extremely neat event. And we had over 4,000 people to it. We had to be turning people away, and I thought, it's kind of a nice environment back here. And given the fact that at times we run into issues as it relates to the utilization of the field, we thought we might be able to enclose an area and do the same thing for boxing. And we did that, and everybody loved it. It turned out to be a great event.
Well, I think what's impressive about boxing is you watch the fighters. YouTube, luckily enough, has rebroadcast a lot of stuff. Even the Grand Rapids Press has replayed some of the Bouting Expedition. Some of it was really, really good. I was impressed that these guys are for real. The movement, the hand movements, the backward and forward. And a lot of these guys are honest, and they weren't cocky at all when you interviewed them.
Now, we've got, I think, a kind of a nice blend right now. We've got the veteran and Troy Rowland, who's making his reappearance into the ring. The kid's 24-2. He was right on the cusp of the national scene when he was injured and retired. He's back. This was his second fight in. It was a good, tough fight for him. He looked well. I think that he's well on his way. But then beyond that, on the other side, we've got some of the young kids that have just recently turned pro that add a lot of excitement to it. And part of our thinking here is that they get these kids kind of grounded, get them on their feet, and get them a couple of fights to kind of get used to the professional environment before they're just kind of rushed off into Detroit or Chicago or Cleveland, and they end up being basically just somebody's opponent.
Yeah, and that's really a good way. Jackie Kalin out on the West Coast, we always call her up and talk to her what she's doing, and she's got several fighters that she's working with. She's actually wanting to come back to Detroit and kick off boxing scene again, so I think there's a meeting between Jackie and Denny going on behind the scenes.
Well, I've spoken with Jackie before, and we've talked about putting a collaboration here in West Michigan. At one time, she was promoting an all-female circuit, and we couldn't get together on terms on that one. But Jackie's paid her dues. She's well respected in the boxing industry, and I think that for her to come back to Detroit and establish a couple of shows there would be fantastic, quite frankly.
Well, I think it'd be fantastic for boxing as a whole, because boxing has been, even though I was a fan, there was the ugly side of boxing that nobody liked. If anybody was a fan, nobody wanted to see boxing go down the path that it went down for several years after Tyson. There's quality fighters mixed in there. Unfortunately, it just seems like with their downside and the mixed martial arts just explosion, it sort of put the sweet science of the sport we both love sort of behind the scenes. Now, with what you're trying to do right now, you've got Troy Rowland out there. He's looking real sharp, very nice kid. Great interview on the M Live that Grand Rapids Press had. If more people like that came forward in boxing, I could see this just, I guess a revolution over MMA.
I think you hit the nail right on the head once again, that there are some real good kids re-picking up the sport once again, and that's what I think that the community really is looking for, and I think the boxing industry is really looking for. For a while we thought that characters would carry the day, and they burn kind of hot for a little while, but at the end of the day, I think what ends up happening once their stars off the scene is that they provide more harm than good. I think what people really like is they like to be able to get behind a champion, somebody that they can identify with, somebody who's going to be in there and being compelling and whatnot, but at the end of the day represents all the good things that that we look for in our champions in other sports. We look for them in baseball, we look for them in hockey, we look for them in football. We really look for them in boxing as well. And for a while there, I think we got carried away with looking at the characters as opposed to the character of the individual.
Yeah, and right now in all of sports, I think the character of the individual is weighing more heavy. I know in college sports that we interview thousands of coaches and athletes, and character is the number one issue now coming out. It's not as much as athleticism. It is character that is now bringing these kids to college campuses to have them, work in their programs, whether it's girls or guys. It's the character of the individual.
Yeah, and I think that for us as a promoter, we want to be able to be associated with good kids, with again people that that fans are going to identify with, that are good to work with. They handle their business in a professional manner, and I think that that's where the nice new marriage is coming from. Is that I think we've got a good collection there, and I think that really all they're looking for is what's the path. I think that if you identify what the path is for them and lay out, here's what's expected of you, more than not will follow that path and give you a good show, give you a good product, and be a good representation of your company at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% right with that in sports. Now, let's change ships a little bit. I love baseball. I went to the Durham Bulls and fell in love with that style of ball. It was just a wonderful feeling when you sit down and watch that game in Durham Bulls. I mean, the Fox News station was right across the path. The grass is green. It's beautiful. I understand Fifth Third Ballpark is just off the hook.
We're really quite fortunate. We've had a good run of success here. We've been very intent on putting money back into the facility every year and keeping to make changes to it and make additions to it so that people sense still a freshness and a newness, and that we do provide amenities that keep it among the top facilities in all of baseball. And it's nice to get the rewards from it, but really when it comes down to it, how we know that we've got a good facility is because the Detroit Tigers do not hesitate in sending us somebody for a rehab here. They would not do that if this facility was not up to standard. And for us to have Ordonez and Bonderman and Granderson and Kenny Rogers here in just the last couple of years, tells us the fact that the Major League parent knows the ballpark that we've got here, the people that we got here, and they don't have a problem sending their investments here.
Yeah, the one thing about baseball just blows me away is what a stat game it is. I've got friends right now that I could pick up the phone and say 1942 second base, played for whatever team, and they're rifling it off. Are you one of those guys?
To some degree. I mean, in my youth, I could tell you Yastrzemski winning the Triple Crown, 44, 121, 326. Yeah, I can do that. I'm not near as good at it as I get into my old age here. But absolutely, and that's really where the upsetting of the steroids is because it's distorted stats, and they've been such a part of the game and such a part of everybody's history, and that's what's been the crushing blow. I think, in some sense, people, they like the excitement of the game. They want to see what everybody can push to. But what's really hurt is the fact that how do you really judge a McGuire? How do you really judge a Bonds or a Palmeiro against the other greats? Because you don't know what's real or what's not. How much different would they have been? And that's what really hurts and what's really frustrating for a lot of the fans.
Yeah, and the one thing I'm going to get your opinion on this too. My feeling is that I think you need to start at high school to start drug testing for steroids. I think in college, I really feel if you want to stop the drugs going in sports, football, baseball, hockey, then you need to start young because right now you're going after guys that have the money to hide it. They've got the product to hide it. There's at least a half dozen people that know how to tamper it, so you can't, you can do a false positive or a false negative. But I think you got to really educate the young kids about how short their lives are because the average lifespan of a football player is 50 years, and half these drugs are going to kill them before that.
I wholeheartedly agree because in some sense the horse is already out of the barn by the time you wait till they're actually into the professional level. I think that if you're going to educate, if you're going to stop a lot of this practice, you've got to catch it early while they're impressionable, while they're paying attention, while you've kind of got something to hold in front of them, and I think that you can eradicate a huge amount of the problem.
Denny, I want to say thank you for taking so much time with us. We greatly appreciate it. You're going to sit back and probably enjoy a nice baseball game right now.
Oh, absolutely. We're off to a great start to the second half, and we're looking for another win tonight.
Wonderful. Denny Baxter from the Icecaps and the promoter at Fifth Third Ballpark for boxing. Stay on the line for just 1 second as we sign off. Thank you, everybody.